left Augusta and spent the next 7 days biking through the mountains and tall Kerry forests on the way to Albany. The total distance of this leg was 420 kilometers. Very tough riding, but roads were quiet and the countryside was beautiful. The first stop was the small lumber town of Nannup. This was my favorite of the mountain towns. Nannup is making the transition to tourism. Every town looks for a hook, and the Nannup tiger is theirs. This carnivorous tiger-striped marsupial is actually now extinct. The city added Nannup to the name and claims it is still occasionally sighted around the area. All in good fun, I guess. I continued through the tall shaded forest roads to Pemberton. This is still a working mill town. I kept seeing signs for Marin and restaurants. I had no idea what Marin was. I had to go in and see for myself. Can I pick one up and hold it up?
Yeah, yeah. That's it.
Marin is a large freshwater crayfish native to the area's rivers. Turns out that to meet demand, they actually farm them here in Southwest Australia. My college education was in fisheries management and aquaculture, so the possibility of seeing a farm piqued my interest. My next stop was a campground called Shannon Camp. I was invited for happy hour and dinner with these folks. The next morning for coffee and before I hit the road, they insisted on my indoctrination to Vegemite. An acquired taste for sure. That day I stopped for a rest and took the treetop walk in the Valley of the Giants. I'm not big on heights. This treetop suspension bridge moved quite a bit under my weight. It must really sway with a full load of tourists. The area really started to green up as the road returned back toward the coast. In Walpole, I met this interesting guy and we compared bikes. As always, the waterfront was beautiful, but for the first time on this trip, the camping ground was mosquito hell. I bailed out early the next morning. Next stop was the town of Denmark. The Cliftons had made arrangements for me to meet up with Stuart and Nikki Duncan. A year ago, the Duncans sold their sheep farm in Kogenup and are now living the good life in Denmark. They were nice enough to tour me around the area. If I can work out a double life in Australia and Montana, Denmark is where I'll be. It was lucky for me that Nikki's good friends Robin and Helen Young have a Marin farm in the area, and we went to see it. The operation is a series of ponds and covered tanks. They grow the blue variety Marin for both aquarium trade and restaurants. The Youngs are ex-sheep farmers as well and bought this farm 3 years ago. It was really interesting to hear about the transition from sheep farming to aquaculture. Don't you bite me, you sucker. Oh man, they are beautiful. The last stop on my ride to the Great Southern Region is Albany. The port city of Albany is the oldest continuous European settlement in Western Australia. The original settlement was a hastily dispatched British military outpost. It was intended to forestall any plans by the French for settlements in Western Australia. It's now a tourist destination and regarded for its natural beauty and preservation heritage. The Western Power wind farm in Albany is the largest and newest in Australia. Its 12 turbines, driven by strong southerly winds, can generate up to 75% of the city's electricity usage. As I stood on the boardwalk overlooking the beach next to the wind turbines, I was thinking how crystal clear the water was and how good the waves on the sandbar were. Nobody was out. Good thing. I realized I was looking directly down on 2 sharks cruising those same sandbars. Using footprints in the sand as scale, these sharks were 6 to 7 feet long. I really flipped out when I realized my video battery was dead. What a lost opportunity. Best I could do were these still shots. The last thing I toured in Albany was Whale World. The name alone suggests goofy tourist trap. Far from it. It was actually fantastic. Albany was Australia's last whaling station. It ceased operation in 1978. They have done a great job of preserving it as it was, with a guided tour of how the actual stomach-turning operation worked. The reality of turning these amazing creatures into tanks of whale oil and bags of bone meal as late as 1978 in the name of industrial progress is a real eye-opener. By preserving this station and turning it into a first-class museum, Australians are doing a great service in the process of educating the public on the importance of the health of our ocean environment. Albany concludes my far southwestern bike exploration. I'm taking the bike on a bus back to Perth for a few days and then back on the Indian Pacific to Adelaide.